Peih-Gee, why should people listen to this episode of Pod Friends featuring you?
Well, I think that if you love a lot of the same things I do, like escape rooms, board games, puzzles, and community, these are all things that we talk about. I give you a lot of bullshit life advice. No, I'm just kidding.
It's great. It's great advice. Some of the best.
But we talk a lot about finding community in built around things that you love. And so this is for all of the nerds out there, okay? If you love something really obscure, really nerdy, you love escape rooms and puzzles, like this is what we talk about. I talk about the joy of finding community in escape rooms and gaming together, and the survivor community and finding joy in those places. And so if you're feeling like you're stuck in a rut in your life, you want to like try something different, we talk about all of that in this episode, so you should check it out.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pod Friends. I'm your host, Matt Scott. That song was Pod Friends by Will from America. And if you want to skip ahead to the interview with Peih-Gee, you could skip ahead about 4 minutes, but I recommend you hang around because there's a chance to be part of Pod Friends in next week's season finale and a chance to win a very special prize along the way. So I'm thrilled for the conversation with Peih-Gee. I'll get to talking about that, but first I want to share that I have a very special prize to offer one lucky winner in exchange for doing one or both of two things. I mentioned this on last week's episode, but I am collecting stories from you, the Pod Friends listeners, about how survivors change your life for the better. You could submit those stories by going to bit.ly/survivor50stories. That's bit.ly/survivor50stories. I've been posting the link to the platform vocal video in a bunch of different places and getting so many different submissions. But my goal is to get 50 submissions from all of you in honor of Survivor 50. It's a celebration after all. And yet I'm only just over halfway to that goal, which means I could use help from you, the Pod Friends listeners, submitting your stories at the link and letting me know how survivors changed your life. Also, last week I announced something very special. I know it's still in the mail, on its way to me, but Pod Friends now has merch available at robhasawebsite.com/store in all of your favorite colors. I'm very excited. I know a bunch of folks have already bought the shirts, and I'm going to shout them out on next week's episode because I'm so thankful for everyone who's done that. You could DM me proof of purchase on any platform, Matt Scott GW, and I'll make sure that you have those 3 entries for the shirt. But if you share your story as part of the Pod Friends season finale, if you buy merch, you'll be entered to win a special prize. It'll be 1 entry for sharing your story, 3 entries for buying a shirt. And what is that prize, you ask? Well, that prize for one lucky listener whose name I'll be drawing out of a hat will be a preseason interview with Mike Bloom. That's Mike Bloom sitting down with you, chatting it up, asking you questions as if you're out in Fiji, getting ready to go play Survivor, or getting ready to play any game that you're interested in playing. Mike is amazing. He was an amazing Pod Friends guest overall. So many people tell me about how much that episode of Pod Friends means to them. And what I think is so cool is that this is a chance for you to support Pod Friends and to be in touch with someone who I really feel is a quintessential Pod Friends guest. The deadline for you to do all that is Wednesday, February 18th. And after that, I'll be entering folks into the drawing to win the preseason interview with Mike Bloom. With Mike interviewing you like the star you are. But speaking of stars, this week's episode features the one and only Peih-Gee Law of Survivor China, of Survivor Second Chance, but also who I've really come to appreciate as a creator behind two platforms I love that are focused on gaming. One of them is Reality Escape Pod. The other is Peih-Gee's Playhouse. Both of them are with her co-host, David Spira. And what's so incredible about this conversation is it goes so many places. Peih-Gee is such a pro. You understand how she got cast for Survivor when she was cast for Survivor. You understand how she's a personality out there with podcasts and everything else because she is amazing. But one of the things I love about this conversation is I really dive into the topic of Peih-Gee of like, what's the role of play in difficult times and heavy times and times where it might feel guilty for us to be out there playing. So I loved this conversation with Peih-Gee, as you could tell. I hope that you love it too. And I'm really excited for you to also hear next week's episode, the season finale, where we'll be sharing those 50 messages, hopefully, if you submit your story, bit.ly/survivor50 stories with a special guest. And I'm not even going to announce the special guest, but I'll tell you it's someone from Survivor and someone who I feel like embodies the idea of celebration, of joy, of play, of fun, and someone who I'm really excited to check out your stories with next week. So stay tuned for all of that. But without further ado, let's get to my conversation with the one, the only Peih-Gee Law. Making her way to the podcast from the golden state of California, a jeweler by trade, a Survivor China and Survivor Second Chance fan favorite, co-creator of Reality Escape Pod and host of Peih-Gee's Playhouse, a lover of games, play, and joyful competition, and proud human to Yum Yum. From Jean Hu to talking with me and you, please welcome Peih-Gee Law. But we're here. We're doing it. This is exciting. What's your dog's name, by the way? I feel like I don't know.
His name is Yum Yum.
Yum Yum. Yeah. I'm so curious. Like, wait, how long has Yum Yum been in the family? Like, you will probably hear from Yum Yum at some point along the way.
Yes. I've given him his treat, or otherwise I would get up and grab him and throw him on screen. You know, I'm gonna go do that. Give me 1 second.
It's like he'll be back. Come back in. Yum Yum, an amazing name.
Just because I want to show off.
Wait, this is so perfect because I always loved to tell people watch the video version, and this is like.
Yes, he's adorable. He has his own Instagram.
Oh my gosh. Follow him on Instagram.
Look at his can I just look at his pearls?
Wait, hold on. I'm gonna like full screen you for a second just to like look. Oh,
can y'all see?
Is
my phone number being doxxed? No. Okay. Look at his pearls.
Oh,
the fashion boy.
Oh my gosh, he's adorable. Oh, Yum Yum's here. This is amazing. And I'm so glad that we're doing this pod, friends. I'm happy to talk with you because of course, I started watching Survivor. We're all Survivor fans in the RHAP world, of course. I started watching it, Survivor Cook Islands. Survivor China was shortly after that. Of course, a couple seasons later, I was so invested. Obviously was a fan of yours and of everything that was happening on that season.
So how was your second season?
My third season. I think I guess Fiji was before China. So it was Cook Islands, Fiji, and then China. And I only know that I think because I don't know. I can't keep up. Peih-Gee was China Survivor's 15th season.
15. Yep, that's right. I mean,
Lucky
that's
number 15.
Amazing that I was like the third one. I was really hoping that you weren't going to break my heart with, I was just a kid when I started watching you. And I'm like, oh God.
You know what? No, you know what? We don't have to mention those things. It's fine. No, but it's so funny because like I think for me, more than anything, like Reality Escape Pod and now Peih-Gee's Playhouse and everything you're doing on that front has sort of been like my more recent connection and appreciation of everything you're up to. And so it's like cool to bring you in, and we'll go so many different directions. But like PG, do you do, because I one thing that people who listen to this podcast know about me is like I do my research. I will dive in. So I was just listening to you and Stephen Fishback on a podcast, a couple days ago.
Yes, Steven's the homie, dude. And can I just say
Please.
that I really appreciate that you do your research, because my podcast co-host, so for anybody who's listening who doesn't know, I've been doing a podcast for the past 5 years. It's called Reality Escape Pod. I have a co-host named David Spira. We interview people who make really amazing immersive experiences, escape rooms, all kinds of cool stuff, LARPs, things like that. And he's the one who does like the crazy in-depth research. He watches like every interview that the guest has done. And I have the best job ever because I get to be the idiot sidekick.
We love that.
I get to be the one who does zero research because I'm like the audience stand-in, right? So like it's good to have somebody who doesn't know what's an ARG. You guys keep using that term ARG. What the heck does that mean? And it's good to have somebody there to kind of ask the questions that sometimes you forget because you've been in that world, in that industry for so long, you just assume everybody knows. And for anyone out there who doesn't know, ARG is an alternate reality game,
right?
And it's like real world. You stumble across a phone number and you randomly call it, and now you're off on some adventure chasing down puzzles and clues, and it's crazy. It's awesome.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, it's hilarious to me because now you're helping me realize like I'm my own idiot psychic. Like I do the research and I'm also I'm like, what's going on here? I don't know. It's like a funny dynamic. I never really thought about that. It's like split personalities in one right here. So I appreciate that. It's amazing though, just to like hear a little bit about the podcast. Could you just mention like what are the different podcast projects that you're doing? And like we'll go back, PG, into like various parts of your story and talk about community and like games and play and everything else. But like since we sort of like dangled the carrot of the podcast, like how would you describe Reality Escape Pod and I guess PG's Playhouse? But we could get to that separately too.
I talked a little bit about Reality Escape Pod. It's an interview style podcast. So we invite creators who have made escape rooms, but also all kinds of stuff. People who've made Neotropolis, which I now work on, which is a 5-day immersive cyberpunk festival in the desert with a gaming element. We've interviewed Alon Lee, who created like one of the world's first ARGs. He is also the CEO and founder of Exploding Kittens, the board game company, but he worked on ARGs way back in the day. We've interviewed Neil Patrick Harris, who loves all of these immersive experiences, immersive theater, but he created a puzzle box called Box One in like 2020. And so we had him come on and talk to us about that. And so basically anything that's gaming related with an immersive or puzzle element or twist, like basically something that you have to experience in person, as opposed to like video games you're playing online, or things like immersive theater where it's more of a show and you're in the moment, you're there, but you're still kind of a passive observer. So we like to cover things where there's an element of play and interaction with other people IRL, like in real life, for the most part. And that's what I've kind of really been into these past couple of years, is helping people find that sense of community through play, through interacting in real life, because nowadays our lives are so dominated by media and everything is filtered through this lens of interacting online. You have these parasocial relationships with people. I'm sure like people, watching all of these reality people on TV and interacting with people through like Instagram DMs and things like that. But there's really something about getting together in person and having an excuse for doing that. We call them in LARPs, they call them like alibis. So you're kind of giving yourself like a reason to talk to somebody.
Ooh, I love this. And it's like, I don't know, it's interesting because when I think about, like, I just did, it's so funny because I guess I didn't realize that, like, doing escape rooms is not something that, like, everyone just does all the time, or like here and there. Because I've probably done like maybe a couple dozen, which doesn't even feel like a lot.
That is
because
a lot for your average person.
Well, yeah, because I had one friend who, like, randomly, this must have been like 2 years ago. We were in her neighborhood, like, we got brunch, and then I was like, oh, there's this escape room place like 2 blocks away. Let's walk over there. Just the two of us, like, walked into this completely empty place because it was like snowing and gross out, and like no one was there. And she was like, I've never done an escape room. And I'm like, I guess I'm going to be the escape room expert guiding you through. And we did finish with like very little time to spare. But it's
what
funny.
What city are you in?
I'm in Washington, D.C., but I've done them like in different places. The last one I did was actually in San Francisco, probably at like one of the escape game locations with people from the RHAP community. And we did finish, we made it out, I think only once, like maybe twice, but at least once we did not get out, and it hurt. It really did hurt.
Can I tell you that I did an escape room with a whole bunch of survivors? So one of my best friends now is this guy named Tommy Honton. He created this escape room in Koreatown in LA called Stash House. And so he is actually a really, really big Survivor fan. That's part of how we met. And I had just gotten into escape rooms at that time. And so I think it was Anthony Robinson, actually, from Survivor Peih-Gee, who had gone to go play this escape room, talked to Tommy. Tommy told him he was a huge fan. And then he invited Anthony to bring like a bunch of survivors. He's like, I would love to host you guys, like come play a game. And so we rounded up like 10, different people from the Survivor community back then who wanted to come play. Half of these guys had never played an escape room before. Okay, so I'm in there. And then this is the thing. So because of this group that were coming in and playing, Tommy decides to add an extra survivor layer to this escape room. So usually in an escape room, you're all working together, you're winning together or losing together. It's not like competitive, right? And he's like, well, in honor of, a bunch of survivors coming and playing, he made this extra layer where there was a puzzle at the end and only one person could win. He had hid hints to this puzzle on little pieces of paper, or like little scrolls that he had rolled up and like hidden throughout this room. And so if you had to find enough of these scrolls and get enough information to piece together like a combination, a lock. And if you were the first one to enter the lock, come to the room and touch the skull, like you were the sole survivor of this puzzle game. So it was like a really fun element. The problem is that I'm playing this escape room with all of these survivors that have not played escape rooms, but they've all played Survivor. So now instead of working on the puzzles, everybody's just looking for these freaking scrolls. Like I look over the corner, I see like Jay Starrett like shoving these papers down his pants, and I'm like, bro, come help me with this puzzle. And he's like, I'm busy. And like
Wait, who was there? Because I will also say, I feel like nowadays, and maybe I think this is one of the differences I've definitely seen and heard about with the community is that, like, especially with the new era, and I've experienced this because I've been a part of RHAP over the last 5 years, which lines up with the new era. Like, there's so much of people coming together and going to watch parties and spending time together, like multiple times throughout the season, including going to escape rooms. I actually think when we're recording this, there's an auction that a bunch of folks are part of to support like folks in Minnesota right now with everything that's happening there. And I'm pretty sure there's one group in New York, like 6 survivors that are doing auctioning off an escape room that they'll do with people. So I think it's growing in popularity, but like who was part of this? I have to ask who was part of the experience that you're talking about. You mentioned Jay, for example, you were there. It sounds like Anthony was also there, but
this was a really really long time ago. I don't remember exactly who else was there, but I do know that Adam Klein was there and Franny,
Yeah.
who, from
44, season 44.
No. This was
no, like Francesca,
Francesca
Hoagie.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and maybe Tyler Frederickson. I'm trying to remember who else. There was like a lot. I don't know. This was like 6 or 7 years ago. I've played 450 escape rooms. I can't remember all of them. But so I remember that Adam and Franny were there because Adam was the one who had figured out the code at the very end, the Soul Survivor code, and punched it in. Except that he was too busy celebrating, he was so busy celebrating that he forgot that the whole thing was you had to be the first one to touch the skull was the thing. And so he's busy celebrating. Franny bursts through and grabs the skull.
I love that so much.
And she swooped in for the win. That's why I remember that those two were there.
I'm surprised. She should I know speaking of podcasting and she's out there and has I wish I should keep up so much more with everything that she's up to, because I feel like there's a lot of cool stuff that I've gotten little snippets of over the last several years, but that makes me so happy, and I feel like she should put that everywhere, just own that win.
Yes, everybody needs to listen to her podcast, because I had one dinner with her once, and she said something to me that really changed how I looked at my life, the lens at which I was looking through some things. And it was basically, I think I was complaining to her about my love life and about how I have bad taste in guys. I always, and I always like these guys where we have this slightly combative relationship. There's a lot of banter. You're teasing it, and then I don't know, it's weird. You want someone who's gonna kind of not put you down, but tease you a little bit and poke fun and just push you. You kind of I kind of wanted that challenge. And she looked at me and she goes, "Did you grow up in a household where your parents expressed love as criticism? We just want, we're only being hard on you because we think that you have so much potential and we think that you can do better than this. We know you're better, you can." And so I had never thought of it that way. And now I'm rethinking everything.
You're blowing my mind right now, though, because this is so strange. And I don't even feel like I grew up in that. Definitely not to the extent that a lot of others did, but
Tiger
now
mom,
yeah, exactly. I feel like I'm lucky that my parents were relatively chill about things and support and all that, but so many friends who have either the tiger moms or their equivalent of that, and it's so interesting because now I'm going to be looking out for that in their so do you when your partner expresses their love as criticism?
Well, I never thought of it that way. And I was yes, I feel loved when people criticize me. It's twisted.
Wait, I think this is so interesting to me on a lot of levels.
Everyone at home is rethinking their entire love life and childhood now.
Rethink it. And just observe okay, as a follow-up, what do you do with that once you recognize it,
Well, a lot of, I think her philosophy was why don't you feel like you deserve the type of love that you do deserve to have, right? I was because it was I think there were two guys and I was I don't know which one I like better. I kind of like this better because I think he's more fun. The other guy's supportive and it's boring. I mean, look, I'm still single, so clearly I haven't figured it out yet. But a lot of it kind of goes back, I guess, to those things. I never really thought about it, but I guess you should. So listen to her podcast. She's a freaking genius.
No, that's okay. I really appreciate though that you shared this, because back to what I said about doing the research, wearing my David hat in terms of the reality escape pod, comparison. I love Kellen Bechtold. I listened back to your Road to Reality interview. I also like to mention past interviews people did, so people could check them out or hear even more that we probably won't dive into as much here. But you shared at one point, and I definitely wrote this down somewhere, and I don't even remember what prompts it, but you had like a similar moment where like, oh, here's this piece of wisdom that I received that changed my life. And it was, I don't know if it was like a life motto and an approach, but you were talking about like somebody, look at me, doing the research and yet not having any specifics, but somebody who in a podcast or otherwise gave this advice to do like 5 things every day, and they were like,
Formula
do
for
something.
happiness.
Exactly. Wait, yeah, tell me about this. Because you
This
probably
all
could tell me about it better than I could explain it back to you from what you said on the podcast.
You know, what's funny is I heard it somewhere and then I tried to do more research on it and I couldn't find it anywhere. So
What's it
now
called again, by the way? You just said it.
it
What
was
happiness?
it was like the formula for happiness.
Formula
5
for
If
happiness.
you do these 5 things every day, you will become a happy person, or at least you will start to feel happier, maybe more satisfied with your life, you know. And so the first one, oh gosh, let me think now. The first one was something like try something new every day.
Mm-hmm.
Do something
Yeah.
new. And they were like, it doesn't have to be we're not talking a major life change, although it can be that, but it could be something as simple as trying a new sandwich for lunch that, you know, or a new lunch spot, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
try something new, take a different route to work, whatever it is, change up your schedule a little bit, you know,
Mm-hmm.
put your left sock on before your right sock on,
Oh
whatever
my
it is.
gosh.
uh,
Yeah.
just little things. The second one was take a risk. And again,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but a lot of times we're held back by fear, you know? So like going and talking to a new person, or, you know, trying that new sandwich. What if I hate it? Like I'm afraid, you know, so like even trying a new food can be a risk, because if you don't like it, maybe you wasted your lunch or whatever, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but then what if it's the best thing you've ever had, right? Like, so you don't know. So it's like about putting yourself out there, trying something new. And then the third is like communicating with somebody. So it
Mm-hmm.
could even be yourself. It could even be checking in with yourself, but you know, talk to somebody. Don't isolate yourself. Don't go all day without kind of like messaging one of your friends, one of your relatives, kind of saying hi, checking in with somebody. So that was one of them. The third was like, or the fourth is like to have gratitude. So to just
Okay.
appreciate something in your life. You know what? I made my coffee with the perfect ratio. This is so good. This is exactly how I like it. I'm starting the day off right. Things like that. You know, I look at my dog and I'm like, you are so adorable. Like, like I'm so happy that you're here in my life. So just appreciating the small things. There was one more. I cannot remember it.
Okay, so I have my list of what you said on the podcast, and I before I tell you the one that I have that you might be looking for, I just have to say I hate lists of things because I will always forget the last thing on the list. It could be
Yeah.
17 things and I'll get 16 and then there's one. But you also mentioned, well, there are a couple things you mentioned. Like one is do something for others,
Oh,
which
yes.
might be the
Yes.
other one.
Yes. Yes. Do something for somebody else. And so like a really good example of this is like giving somebody a compliment. You know, if you're
Mhm.
never one to do that a lot, and this happens to people a lot, like, you know, somebody's wearing like a cool outfit and
Mhm.
you're like, you think to yourself, hey, that person looks pretty cool. Like go up to them and say it. Just, hey man, like I think I dig your style. I love that jacket. The hair's looking good, you know, and so this could cover all of the bases, right? You've tried something new, something a little risky. It's weird. People
Yeah.
always feel afraid to talk to other people. What if they think I'm annoying? You know, like
Right.
there's this fear associated with that. So if you can push past that, and now you've talked to somebody else, and you can check that off of your list, and you've done something for someone else. You've maybe given them a compliment, you've brightened their day a little bit, you know. And I think if you do this, you'll be surprised at how good it makes you feel, even though you gave somebody else a compliment.
I love this so much. And like I don't know, I'm a big fan of like I'm sure a lot of the books on my bookshelf are those books that like give that those types of tips and advice. But it's interesting because like it's so easy for people to feel stuck. And I think especially when you're like consumed by social media and the news and everything else, it's really easy to feel stuck or powerless or, you know, whatever the word is that you want to find there. And yet like That's a great example. Actually,
So
that and
th-
the wisdom from Franny, or yeah, they're like such great examples of like very tangible things people could do. But yeah,
well,
go
what
for it.
really drove that point home for me was thinking about if you don't do those things every day. So, what does your life look like if you are not practicing those things? So, you are never trying anything new. You're stuck in a
Mm-hmm.
rut. You're just doing the same things over and over again. The same things that you know, if you're feeling unhappy and stuck in a rut, but you're going to keep doing the same thing, like, does that make sense? Same as like not taking any risks. You're always doing the safe thing. It goes back to like the thing you're already comfortable and familiar with, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
what's making you happy, obviously, if you're feeling stuck, and being isolated, not
Mm-hmm.
reaching out to other people, and then conversely, you're always being selfish. You're only thinking of yourself, not what you can do for others. And then, of course, not being grateful is like not appreciating what you have in your life. So people who aren't grateful, I find, tend to be very negative
Yeah.
about a lot of, everything is horrible, everything's terrible. You're like really focused on all the things that are going wrong in your life
Mm-hmm.
without celebrating the small wins. Yeah, I mean, this is something that like I practice, this is a lot of what like escape rooms kind of do for me. Like if you think about it, it's always like this is I think that's one of the reasons why I really, really like them, because it's always something new and
Uh-huh.
weird. You don't know what's gonna happen in them, of course. That's the whole point, is like a lot of it is about discovery, about like discovering new things. You're kind of put in these, even like I like the horror games. They're like kind of like I like the scary ones,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a little risky. You don't know what's gonna happen. Is something gonna jump out at you? You're with your group of friends, so you're communicating, and then a lot of it is celebrating small wins, because it's not only about like escaping at the end, but along the way you're solving puzzles, and every time you've found something, you've solved a little thing, you've kind of worked towards this bigger goal. And so for me, like I feel like a lot of those things are encapsulated when I'm in an escape room, and so that's part of why I think I'm like so addicted to them.
I love this. PG, you're so like easy to talk with. There's so much I want to get into, but I want to ask like what's the as you mentioned like escape rooms being this way of I mean finding all the things that you just outlined, but I'm curious for you just looking at escape rooms and games overall, and maybe this extends to Survivor or other games you've played, but like how did you first like get into those and get so into games, especially because I'm sure you talked a little bit about probably more than a little bit about your Survivor casting experience and all of that, but like I'm more curious about like how you found a love of games. For so many of us it's like as kids, and then we like lose that play and that fun and that exploration, but I'm curious about that part. Where did you yeah how did you become, is it a game, do they call you do they call people game heads, is that a thing? I don't know.
I don't know that there's a term yet. I'm open to them. Calling yourself a gamer is weird because people always
Yeah,
think of video games
right.
when it comes to that. So I really don't know what the phrase is for it. But I will say this, is that like just about every survivor I've met, every person who's been on Survivor loves games. They love playing. Like I think that's really something that all of them have in common, is like finding a real joy of that, of like, because it's everything. It's like strategy, it's pitting yourself against other people. So like I don't know, I think that we all love to play. I think humans all love to play. And like
Hmm.
at some point, you forget about it because life happens. And for me, I just stayed like 12 years old my whole life. So, I just always loved play. I loved, embracing the inner child. I love that it takes you to kind of a like an alternate world in a way.
Hmm.
You're placed in like a situation that's kind of practice for the real world in a sense, because that's what play is. A lot of times it's about imagined scenarios. It's about executing strategies and things that you may be able to extrapolate into your larger life, and so that's a big reason I think why Survivor has stayed so popular through the ages, because people look at it and they're like, oh, this is politics. This is
Yeah.
work politics. This is dealing with family dynamics and relationships and friend groups, and so and all of that is kind of expressed through games, which take these things and shrink them down into little microcosms and then put a skin on it. Excuse me, whether you are battling outer space aliens or you are stranded on a desert island somewhere.
Casual. Yeah. No, it's like interesting though to me to think about games because we know how important they are. Like we feel them, we feel the benefit of them, whether that's how they make us feel, whether that's learning and just like expanding or like you said, practice for the real world or like real world quote unquote and things that we experience. I think that like play in games are so interesting though too, because I just feel like there's a lot of weight in the world right now and I have found some people, I'm not one of them, but some people who are like more hesitant or feel guilty playing games and engaging with play in a world where it's like, but what about these like really heavy issues? Like I'm so curious about that. Like what your thoughts are on all of that. Because yeah, obviously there's an importance to play, and yet at the same time, like it doesn't always feel right, if that makes any sense.
I totally get it, and I think that the people who are really involved in activism,
Yeah.
it's super important, and we need those people. But I think beyond that, though, sometimes for me, a lot of politics ends up being really divisive, and it
Mhm.
feels really like black and white a lot of times, and there's not a lot of room for people to come together and build understanding. And so for me, playing together is a large part of how you get to know each other, right? And
Mm,
so I've met so many different people through, like, say, the escape room community, the gaming community, that come from all different kinds of political backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, and they all have this love with this one shared passion. And I think that being able to kind of, in a way, shed some of these adult responsibilities, you go back to those feelings of play when you're a child and you don't have all these preconceived notions. It's just about finding joy together in a shared moment of delight and discovery. And a lot of times you can push back, you could push past a lot of external factors and you have this like bonded moment of joy. And so I think we need a lot of that in our lives. And you know, sharing humor, sharing joy with somebody else helps you gain an understanding and it helps you realize like we're all people that love and want the same things and that what we have um alike is better and bigger than, all of the differences out there. Does
yeah,
that make
I
sense? Like
it definitely makes sense, and it's interesting to think about, like, even examples of where play could be a great way of, um just people connecting and also like realizing where they're more alike than different, but also like forming a rapport that then creates a safe space, so to speak, like for people to then have difficult conversations or problem solve together, which is like exactly what an escape room is all about in so many ways. I never really thought about it like that, but
well, that's
I
what they
love
do,
this.
a lot of team building in these,
Yeah.
right? And you see the strengths of someone
Uh-huh.
else. And, honestly, there is really nothing else I've experienced that's better than that mind meld you get when you're working with somebody on something and you're trying to figure out a puzzle
Hmm.
and you're both like really confused. You're kind of trauma bonding because you're like, I don't get it. And then somebody says one thing, well, what if it's this? And then the other person latches onto that idea and they're like, okay, but what if we took that and then we did this weird thing to it? And then suddenly it clicks and you've solved it together. And that is like the most amazing feeling. Like feeling somebody building on your idea, like not saying no to it, but yes, but what if we did this to it? And you're working together and building something. And like that is like a high. like that feeling of connection with somebody and feeling like you work together to create something in like a micro moment. It's not
Yeah.
like we're doing these, sure, you're doing these, with teams at work or with families, but all of those take time and they're gradual and you're building really great, big, amazing things. But I like that when it's shrunk into this small little thing and it happens like instantly, you kind of get that like instant satisfaction of like you work together and you came up with something together. And for me, there like that feeling is also like very addictive.
But I love that, and even you explaining that, like it kind of gave me goosebumps in a way because it brought me back to my last escape room experience and what will sometimes happen or what the feeling I've felt like along the way. Because I'll be excited to do an escape room. I'll do an escape room whenever I have the chance. Like hopefully, look, invite me to do all of the escape rooms, and hopefully I could do them all. But it's interesting because I'll sometimes, like, let's say that you're in a room with like a group of 5 people or 6 people or something like that. I'll at first sometimes have this thought of like, okay, like there's a lot happening. A lot of people are doing things. Like, let me not be in the way, or let me step back a little bit and like observe and pay attention and think through things. And it's interesting because I'll go from this place at times where I'm like, oh, this is like they're checking all of the things they need to check. They're flipping all the knobs they need to flip, looking on, whatever it might be. And then, and this is what happened in the last escape room I did, but also other times is there'll be people who are doing the one thing. And then I'll be over here like, let me look at this bookshelf and just see if any of these books that are all like welded or whatever to the shelf. Like, let's see if any of these move. Oh, that just opened a door. I didn't expect that. And I think it's cool to like build up our self-efficacy that way too, of just being like, oh, like me thinking differently about something than the other people in the room, or us like bringing our different diverse strengths together, like does end up helping us work out. And sometimes you're on a team where you don't always feel like, your role or your part's the most important. And I feel like this, like escape rooms, at least for me, have always been this great reminder of like, oh yeah, like we're doing it together. Like I wouldn't have thought about that thing with the magnifying glass and the laser or whatever,
100%. There's been so many times
all
where like
that.
I have my friend Jason who's like the wild card, and I feel like I'm very logical about certain things, and he'll be like, what if we tried this weird thing? He was like, we just read this phrase where it said, like, catch a tiger by the tail. He was like, well, there's a tiger here. Let's pull on the tail. And I'm like, that's not going to be it. And it is. And then it is it. It's like, it's just people's brains think differently. And it's really cool to see that happen. I mean, look, and I think a lot of people get this joy from like sports. Like I think that when you play sports, there's a lot of that teamwork. You're coming together. You made an awesome play. I was just never a sports person,
Right.
and so like for me, this is what sports probably does for a lot of people. Just in case there's anyone listening to this who's like, I don't like puzzles, I like sports. It's kind of like ticking a lot of the same boxes for like, us nerds.
No, this is awesome. I'm curious, like we've been talking about the importance of games, but like for you personally, have games, and this is like the broadest question possible, like have games helped you like navigate any challenges or come to any bigger like aha moments in your life? I'm curious if anything jumps out.
Oh my God. It 100%, like it changed my life. I mean, I made a huge pivot to kind of get into these games over like COVID, like when like the quarantine and pandemic happened. Like honestly, before that, I was working, and I still do, like I do jewelry, and I was traveling a lot, so I was jeweler. Even when I did Survivor the first time, I did jewelry. And so I would travel all over the country doing these events almost every other weekend. And I was getting really burned out. Like
Yeah.
it was good money. I was good at it, but I wasn't really feeling like the joy in it as much anymore. And then the pandemic happened. We were, all grounded, quarantined,
Yeah.
and I couldn't, like, obviously I wasn't flying and going to do these big, large scale events anymore. And I really panicked. I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to survive? Like, how am I going to make any money at all? And, in that moment, I kind of realized, well, okay, I have a little bit of time. I have a little bit of runway. And one of the things I really loved doing before that was like streaming on Twitch. So I was like, you know what, let's do that. And then with like Zoom, everybody's doing Zooms back at that
Yeah.
time. And so I was like, you know what? Something that I'd always wanted to do when I was streaming on Twitch before, and I was streaming video games, but I'd always wanted to do board games. And I really wanted to do board games with other survivors. Like that was kind of a dream of mine, but I just didn't know logistically how to make it work. Do I have people come over? Everyone has a camera in their, like, how do we do
Yeah.
this? And then with Zoom, I was like, oh, we could do it all virtually. And so that, like, during the pandemic, I don't know if you ever watched any of these or you remember, like
Oh
I
yeah,
I was doing
definitely.
all these Twitch streams with it was called Peih-Gee Plays, and I
Hmm.
was playing all of these kind of like hidden trader mechanic, hidden role, social deduction games with other
Right.
survivors. And it was amazing. It was so much fun. I know that we brought a lot of joy to people who were sitting at home. Again, you're bored, nothing else to do. And so, like, being able to see like some of your favorite reality stars competing and playing together was really great. And I did that for like over a year, I think almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And so that was when I started like kind of taking this whole gaming thing a little bit more seriously, because it meant so much to so many people. It meant so much to me. And then over the course of that, I was like, the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, I spent every day on Zooms with my friends for like 4 hours straight.
Hmm.
Games, puzzles, and it was good because you don't really need to talk a lot because you get burned out, but you still don't want to feel alone. And
Yeah.
so it gave us an opportunity to just be on a screen together and not having to expend your social battery, but you're still like have company.
Yeah, and just to like jump in there too, it's I remember that time in some of those Zooms with friends and the like, and it's so strange because y- you don't it's like we were in this weird almost like a liminal space. I don't know if that's the right way of thinking
Yeah.
about it,
A
but like
holding pattern.
holding pattern, everyone's at home. It's not like you're gonna log on and because like I'd use Zoom for 4 years already before through work, like all the time, like every day through work. But the difference is with this, like everyone's at home. There's this global pandemic that's happening, so it's this also really like depressing but like scary time, and we didn't know what to expect, especially early on.
But it was
And
also a shared global experience, and that was
exactly.
bizarre. Like, it was we hadn't really had that since the '90s when everyone's watching the same 3 channels, so you
Oh
all
yeah.
you all know the
Hmm.
exact same commercials, and we're having this shared moment, and
The
then, like,
water cooler moments and all.
yes,
Yeah.
and so I feel like we were getting a lot of that again with the pandemic, and I was experiencing it through this gaming. And you know what? Like, I don't know that I would have had the gumption to make such a huge upheaval and change to my life without some like a literal like global catastrophe, right? So it
Yeah.
takes it takes a lot to shake you out of your rut, and I was definitely in a rut at that time.
Wow. It's like it this is I love this, and it's so powerful just to think about because like again, and I love that you came back to like that idea of like being in a rut because even beyond the games themselves, there's like so much that people can take from that. Like, people are in ruts all the time for a lot of reasons. Sometimes it's globally or it's nationally or it's like a thing that everyone's talking about. And sometimes it's like personal things that come up also. And it's nice to know that I think it's important to know that there are like ways out of those ruts. And sometimes they lead to like sometimes that moment or that forcing function leads to something really amazing on the other end, which I think is beautiful.
I mean, I look back and I'm like, why did I wait so long? But I mean, and I'll tell you this much, like, I'm definitely not making as much as I used to, but I
Sure.
love what I do now. And I'm working harder than I ever did before because it's something I love. And that has really made a big difference in my life. So I'm really grateful to games, to then this podcast. But a lot of it goes back to Survivor. Like, I would not have had the platform that I did without, having previously been on it. I met my podcast co-host David because he was also a big Survivor fan, and he interviewed me about Survivor, and we hit it off so well. We spent like hours and hours talking that eventually, when he wanted to kind of start a podcast talking about escape rooms and other games, he asked me to come on and be his co-host. And so, I'll have to say, like, Survivor has brought a lot of opportunities for my life too. So I'm very grateful for that.
I think that that's so it's so interesting because I'm seeing this theme across different conversations I'm having, and obviously, if you've been on Survivor, like there are people have had so many different relationships with the game of Survivor, and some people have had really amazing experiences that have connected them with like some of their best friends, partners, other people in their lives that mean the world. Others have had really traumatic experience. I feel like most people have had both.
I had
through this.
both. I had a really traumatic experience my second season, so
Ugh,
I don't talk about it
gosh.
very much.
But
I still haven't even watched all of Cambodia.
oh my gosh.
I
Well,
yeah.
that's like it you know what? Honestly, you don't have to at this point. I'm like, you're good.
I
You're
had
good.
I had a lot of trauma after that. I had a
Ugh,
lot of trauma after my experience with Abby Maria, and like we're okay now, but like at the
yeah.
time, like, seeing her in that element in that game was really triggering.
Yeah. No, it's hard and it's oh gosh, it's so even just like other conversations on pod friends that I've had, I feel like a lot of people have that, whether it's you have a good experience and a good edit where you are not fully represented. And so like and I don't think anyone who goes on a TV show is like fully depicted as the full person that they are. And a lot of people have like a sliver of who they are that is
I
what's
got
shown, right? How
Yes,
did
so
you
I
feel
think
about
I got very lucky because
yeah.
I feel like I had a very realistic and complex portrayal in my first episode in Survivor China. So I have no complaints about it. I've always been somebody, I think, who is relatively self-aware. I certainly
Mhm.
know like my strengths and weaknesses. When I was auditioning for Survivor, one of the last things the executives ask you, because you're in this interview room, there's a whole bunch of people in suits throwing questions at you. And one of the last things that they had asked me was, why should we cast you? And I was like, I think people are going to really love me or really hate me. And either way, they're going to talk about it the next day at the water cooler, you know? And
That's
like
what
I
they
already,
want.
yeah. And I was like, I'm not afraid to kind of be myself, even though I don't think it's going to be everybody's cup of tea. And I feel like that was portrayed really well. Like I liked the edit that I got. I know that I got kind of like this underdog. I mean, I was kind of underdog edit out there, but usually underdogs are portrayed with a very sympathetic bent. And I don't think I got a very sympathetic edit, which is okay. And this is something else I learned about me, Matt, by the way,
What?
from reading Survivor Sucks. So back in the
Oh
day,
no.
okay, back in 2007, we didn't have Reddit, we didn't have RHAP, we didn't have any of this stuff. All we had was this forum called Survivor Sucks. And it was this very combative relationship with these fans. It was really bizarre. It was very like early 2000s. Um, but and I was always lucky because I think that
Mhm.
I had a good perception. I had a good response from the fans. So like I felt
Yeah.
lucky in that way. But somebody said something that again, it changed the way I looked at myself because they were like, the thing is, PG didn't get the sympathetic edit because when she's down and out, she doesn't feel sorry for herself.
Right.
She got angry when and so they're like, it's hard to do a sympathetic portrayal when this person doesn't sit around like sobbing. She's instead like angry and she's irritated. And I was like,
That's like
yes, that's
That's like such an astute observation, especially for like 2007 or so, like around that time when we were, I don't know, I guess people weren't as aware of the meta of reality TV. Like there weren't all the different books out there now, like that are talking about reality TV, whether it's something like I have like PG, I have so many books that are just like sitting here. It's like Taryn Armstrong from RHAP wrote a book about Big Brother. This is not an ad. And then I have Steven's book, of course, Escape, which is a novel, but it's like now we're thinking about these things. I think about Cue the Sun by Emily Nussbaum, which I love, which goes into like so much of the history behind reality TV, including Survivor and like Mark Burnett and everything there. But yeah, it's wild to think about it like that because that's like Yeah, it's kind of mind blowing
It
actually
was
to
a
think
long
about
time
it.
ago. This is how
Yeah.
long ago I was on Survivor the first time. I was on MySpace and I heard about Facebook from Jamie Dugan because she was in college still. And back then, Facebook was
Only
mostly
college
only
students.
available to college students. You had to have a .edu email to sign up. Is that wild?
That is why it is wild, and it's funny. Like I'm 33, and it's so but I also had my MySpace, and I had my top 8, and you could like
Top
code it so that
8,
you
you
could
make
have
your
like your top. I had a top 16, I think, at one point.
you could set
They
music to your page,
they
flash
were not my
graphics.
real they were none of them were my real friends. It was like,
You get
okay,
Tom.
yeah, Tom was I don't remember if Tom was in my top 8 for too long, but or my top 16 or whatever it was. But it's so funny because I remember that too when I was in high school was when it's like, oh, we could join Facebook all of a sudden. And yeah, it's such a different time. I mean, is there anything like when you look back you're especially nostalgic for at that point when it comes to like the community or the internet around I guess really for you like around Survivor China and then later Cambodia, of course.
I mean, yes and no. I actually think it's better a lot of ways nowadays because of all the social media. So, like back then, we didn't really have a platform for getting our voices heard that much.
Mm,
Nowadays you can live tweet, people can go on your Instagram and kind of get a better sense of who you are as a person. And we didn't really have that back in those days. We were a lot more afraid of like breaking NDAs.
right.
And so I kind of wish that I had the social media. I mean, it's good and bad because again, I think that it's probably not healthy to see too much of what people are saying about you. But back then we were or at least I was starving for it. Like you want to know what people are thinking, and there weren't that many places people were talking about it. So I think that's good and a bad in a way. Like
Yeah.
maybe you're saved from a lot of the more cruel things that people are saying about you. Because ultimately, like, it's not us, it's a character that looks like us
Hmm.
out there. Did you say these
So
things?
strange.
Yes, but is it edited? Also, yes. They don't show everything. Like, there's like definitely when I was in China, I was pissed that Denise didn't take me on the reward.
Mm.
And of course, you're not going to say anything because I'm not a freaking idiot. Okay, people. And so, like, but of course, I also have this face where I have trouble hiding what I'm thinking. And so Jeff is like, PG, you look pissed. And I'm like, I'm good, Jeff. I'm fine. And he was like, you're not fine. And he harangued me for like 15 minutes of like, we're not going anywhere until you talk, and so of course
Ugh.
eventually the dam breaks and you're like, well, like, hell yeah, I'm pissed, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
and so like, and of course, like, that's the moment they show. I'm not even mad at Jeff because he's doing his job is to,
Hmm.
make good TV and get like the true reactions from people. But, is there some element of manipulation? Like, of course, of course there is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is where again, like thinking of Survivor 50 coming up like right around the corner too. It's interesting because I feel like I'm hearing a lot more, whether it's from players, whether it's from fans, a lot more about like how Survivor has influenced people's lives or been like a meaningful part of their lives. And a lot of really beautiful stories. Like as you look back over this like time with since being on Survivor the first time and like your experience overall, like I don't know, do you ever like reflect on like where you would be otherwise if you hadn't done that?
I mean, for me, it's been so long. Like, I was on Survivor almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Survivor China aired in 2007.
Yeah.
So like, I can't even really remember the time before I was on it. It's been so long, but like I owe almost everything to it. Like of course it changed your life, whether
Hmm.
you think so or not. Like even in the small subtle ways, like I've talked about this before, in my interview with Kellen, but like, and in a lot of other interviews, but like I wasn't in a good place before I went on it. I had come off of a bad breakup and I was, having a hard time picking up the pieces. And so going on Survivor like gave me a chance to kind of prove to myself uh something, you still had that
Mhm.
fire in you. And of course, coming out of it, like suddenly we weren't even that famous back then, but it was still such a boost. And then beyond that, there's the whole community of not only the fans, but also like meeting all of the other Survivor contestants and being part of that community. But being part of the fan community has been amazing. I get to come on
Mhm.
interviews and talk to people like you and share my story, and that has meant a lot also. you know so and again, I wouldn't have met my podcast co-host if I wasn't on it. I don't think I would have had the platform that I have now to get to do the things that I really enjoy. So
So
I
strange.
yes, it's super, super strange.
Like the sliding doors moments or something, like, "Oh, what," like, or the butterfly effect type of thing, like, "What would have happened? Where would I be?" Which is like, it's funny because it's funny that I even ask that question because I'm like I'm not a big regret person. That's probably in part like I'm sure like defense mechanism for like not having a million regrets about and every little thing. But I also think like it's cool to just be like, okay, here's where I am. How do I work with it? What do I do with it? You
You
know?
also never know when something that you thought was a bad moment in your life
Yes.
is going to turn around and be impetus for something amazing. And I'll tell you guys, and I have told this story before, but part of the
Oh.
reason I got cast on Survivor is because I was expelled from UCLA when I was a college student. And I was like this crazy party girl, and I took incompletes on everything. Eventually I went back and I completed my degree, but that was like one of the worst moments of my life. It's so embarrassing, like I'm so ashamed, looking back. And I included it on my application for Survivor. That and
Mhm.
by the way, it's in the same section where they ask, have you ever been arrested? Have you ever been sued? Like all the bad stuff. So like,
Uh-huh.
like you like have you ever been like I don't know. And I was like, yes, I
Yeah.
was expelled from this fancy higher education institution. And so whatever, and I wrote it just a little bit. And then when I got a call from one of the casting people, and they're like, I see here that, it says you were expelled, blah, blah. And I explained the story, and they were like, this is the most interesting thing about you that I've read in your application. These applications are like phone books, they're like this thick. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? And she was like, trust me, I've been doing this a long time. I'm going to put you through to finals. When you go through and you have your interview with Jeff, with Lynn Spillman, who was casting director at the time, she was like,
Uh-huh.
make sure you work this story into your interview with them somehow. If they don't ask you that,
Wow.
she was like, trust me, I've been doing this for a long time. Like, make sure they know the story. And I was like, okay. And so to this day, I'm convinced that that's part of what got me on Survivor. And so I went back and I told my parents, like, you see, you thought this was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. And it opened up a huge opportunity for me later on. So you never know. So don't spend a lot of time crying over something horrible that happened. Either you'll get a good story out of it years later, or you just never know what doors that'll open from something that you thought was like a really bad time in your life.
Oh my gosh, that's so inspiring actually just to think about because there's so much that I think as when people talk about who they are or like what their story is or when they're doing an interview or whatever it might be, whether that's like a job interview or podcast interview or just like talking with a friend or talking with someone they newly meet or I can keep going. Like on a first date, there's stuff where you're like, I'm just not gonna share those things, but you never know like one where other people relate. You never know what doors it'll open. What was PG going back to that UCLA time? Because you like mentioned some. What was so like wild about that time for you?
What was it wild? This is, honestly, it's all of my dad's fault. I blame him because I went to an all girls Catholic high school. I was a straight A student, and
I
his
went to an all boys Catholic high school, so it's like
oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay, so you
rebel.
yes. Well, his whole thing was like, listen, you just need to really apply yourself now, and then you can let loose when you're in college. It's fine. So I like really took that to heart. Uh, And this was in I'm going to totally date myself. This was in, like, for me, the heyday of, like, the rave scene in the 90s. So, like, I
Ooh.
was this wild, like, raver child of the 90s. We drive out to these desert parties, these moon tribes, stay out all night, doing all kinds of, crazy, like, doing acid and mushrooms and just being and just being wild and just loving, like I was just, I was always after this kind of like alternate reality feeling.
Hmm.
And I still get that
Wow.
fix in a lot of ways now in like the immersive game. This is why I'm so into immersive stuff, because you are in like a fantasy world, an alternate world. Back then I was doing it with acid, but
Yeah, tomato, tomato, you know?
yeah, so don't do this at home, kids. I don't really recommend it. But I was just like staying out all night, partying like all weekend long, and it was obviously it's not good for your academic career, so I don't recommend that at all. I'm just one of those people that I don't really know how to do things in moderation.
Mm,
So like
hmm.
I was not just weekend warrior at the time. I was like a weekday all week, all the time nonstop. Until I got a wake up call that like you can't go on like this, because I was failing out of classes. So,
Yeah.
I cleaned my act up. I went to community college for 3 semesters. They said if you can maintain a B+ average, we'll let you back in. And I did. And I, straightened up. I got it out of my system. But yeah, that's
Oh
basically.
my gosh.
And so I think also that, on Survivor, they had kind of just barely started casting Asians. At
Yeah.
that point, we did not have a lot of representation in media at all, like anywhere.
And that was also just like, as you mentioned that, an interesting time because 2 seasons before, China Survivor China was Cook Islands,
Oh my
so they
God.
had, like, this big casting pool. They're like, "Okay, we have a bunch of Black people now and Asians," and, like, they were just it had this pool where, like, Fiji ends up being such a diverse season too. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we still have a long way to go in terms of Asian representation, but like not to cut you off there, it just yeah, it's such a particular time in reality TV, especially.
Yeah, I think that I kind of got this, I got the feeling that they were trying to maybe cast against type when they cast me a little bit, because especially like in the 80s and the 90s, Asians had the model minority. You remember that
Yeah,
term? The
yeah,
model minority kind of stereotype. And so I was like, at first, and you're trying to play into that because you don't know what they're looking for. So, but it turns out like they were looking for something a little different, I guess. Yeah.
maybe I don't know,
I
but
mean,
that's
the casting is the casting is weird. Like I will say this too. At that time when I was on, I was oddly resistant to coming on Survivor as a representative of being Chinese. It was
yeah,
weird. Like I feel very differently about it now, but back then, I think part of it was the desire to not stand out for that, because I wanted to be on there just as me and not I'm here representing Asian people or representing Chinese people. Like don't judge me, and maybe a part of that was because I knew
yeah,
I'm like I had this shadow, like like I
yeah,
wasn't this perfect, model minority
yeah,
representative, as they say. And what snapped me out of it was realizing what was hearing from like fans later, and I was getting a lot of messages from young fans, people of not even Asian but just even people of color, like
yeah,
any young kids of color that were emailing me and saying like, you know what, like I got bullied in school, and I just remembered how you didn't let it get you down. You just started winning, you got more determined. And they were like, I think about that when I feel sad about being bullied. And, it was like it was really inspiring. And looking back and like getting those messages, like I really like teared up, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, it makes an impact, like being any person of color, on these shows, especially back in those days,
Yeah.
and kind of getting a little bit bullied sometimes. It happens. I don't think necessarily it had to do with being Asian, but maybe part of it is just about being different in a
Hmm.
way, and so like that kind of meant a lot to me when I started getting these messages, and it made me realize how important it is to kind of put yourself out there and own like what makes you you, right?
I love this. And it's interesting because the one, I relate so much to that on the other end of it as a viewer. And like it's interesting, like as a black person, as a queer person, like I do the representation looking back that I would see myself in was like so all over the place because like you might go into a season and you're like, oh, I'm gonna be like, oh, I really see myself in like insert person here, and then they don't do well and you're like, oh gosh, or like their depiction is horrible and like rooted in the stereotypes and everything else. And um but it's, I think what's so cool is that like talking with so many different people, like it's fun to see like, oh yeah, um like the black kid wasn't just inspired by like James, it's like, oh, like PG was amazing, or like all these other characters are amazing. And it makes me so happy and just appreciate just your survivor experience overall, and not only your depiction at the time, but I think like over time how that's evolved and aged so well because well, one, like as I'm sure you know and have witnessed, and like as I've seen being in the fandom, like especially back then though, like hard times being a woman, hard times being a person of color, especially like how things are depicted and edited. But it's really cool that like yeah, you did a great job. Like it's like a great thing where I could be like, look at PG, like look back at PG and her experience, despite being like like being put on Survivor China as a Chinese person, and like I'm sure in their eyes, like intentionally representing something. You definitely like showed up to represent so much more, which I think is beautiful. And then you keep
Oh.
you keep representing, which is amazing in so many ways. So many
Oh,
ways.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah. It's funny because I feel like the person I am now is like I'm so different than the person obvious than I was back then, because hopefully in 20 years like you would have changed, you should would have changed and
Yeah.
grown a
Let's
little
hope.
bit.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Like I don't think I would go back on it now.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I love hearing that because a, a lot of people want it so badly still. And again, that Survivor 50 conversations really brought that up where a lot of people came out of the woodwork,
Oh.
and obviously there were a lot of people in the casting
Well, you know what?
process.
I went on
Uh-oh.
it twice and it ain't all that. I'll tell you all that much. Like it's not fun the second time. I had so much fun the
Interesting.
first time. I loved it. I loved like meeting all of the castmates and the experience and the joy of experiencing something new and incredible together. Like
Hmm.
that was amazing. And nowadays, like at least for me, it's like I feel like nowadays the gameplay is so fast and furious. It's nowhere near the experience that I had. But
Yeah.
also returning players now, like they're like savvy. There's none of this like kumbaya, like sitting around bonding. Like it's just nonstop action. We can't even, and now with all these
Yeah.
idols, you can't even leave camp. So we used to be able to go for long walks by ourselves, take a little time and like get away from it. There's none of
Hmm.
that. You can't go anywhere by yourself. Everybody thinks that you're going to look for hidden idols. So you have to just sit around at camp all day. It's so not fun. Uh, it's all business. Like
Yeah.
everybody pre-games. They say they don't, but people are doing
Oh,
all
yeah.
kinds of sneaky stuff.
Mhm.
Like in the background, everyone's calling each other beforehand. They're politicking, and I'm like, yo, y'all are putting in like too much work because we haven't even cameras aren't even rolling, and y'all have been playing for like a month already. Like
But
it's
PG,
too much.
I have to ask you for Survivor 50, like I'm sure people were reaching out to everyone. Like, were you I'm not asking you to expose anyone, but like, were you
Girl,
hearing from
no, I was
people?
out of contempt. Please, no. Like,
No, well, were people like, I just need to talk with PG? You never know.
no.
Like, anyone randomly pops up.
No, I mean, and honestly, like I got a little bit of that before Cambodia,
Yeah, of
but
course.
like I hated it. I really,
Hmm.
really hated it because like there were people call. I'm like, you don't call me. You never like and it had to be
Hmm.
done. But like I was like you don't care. You don't care about me. Like this,
Yeah.
and I understand that this has to be done. It's all jockeying and politicking, and people are already like trying to pregame. And I was just like not into it. But I think also, I mean, this is a big thing that I learned from it because when we were doing 31, I was really not part of the survivor community at that point in my life. I had kind of fallen out of it. And it that was a wake up call to me that there actually is this really cool community of not again like I said not only the community of like people that have been on the show but the fans, and like you're kind of missing out on this. And
Hmm.
I kind of regretted it, so like ever since then I've tried to be like a bigger part of the community. But back then I wasn't going to any of the events or talking to anybody, so I was already like kind of behind. So like,
Yeah.
when all these people come out of the woodworks, and it just felt like icky to me. Like I really
Yeah.
didn't want to play that game. I don't know. And you have to. I just didn't really care for it. So like I think that started me off on a bad foot already. But like if this is your jam, if you're already like all up in the community, then like yeah,
Yeah.
I think you definitely want to try to get on future seasons. But also like I don't feel like I have anything to prove anymore. Like when I did Survivor
Hmm.
China, like I had like a giant inferno inside of me.
Yeah.
People talk about having a fire lit in you. Like I had like an inferno. Like I needed to prove something to myself so bad. And I don't know that I feel that way. And the other thing is that you have to be really competitive. You have to want to
Yeah.
win. This is like the biggest thing with casting for Survivor, at least back in the day. And I'm pretty sure now still, I've talked to casting directors and they
I'm
say like
sure.
the number one thing they look for, besides, of course, personality, is like you have to have an overwhelming desire to win. Like you have to be so competitive that you care about it more than life itself. You have to care about it
Mm.
more than being liked. You have to care about it more than like making friends. You have to care about it more than your own physical bodily discomforts. Like you'll
Yeah.
push yourself to the brink of exhaustion if it means you'll win. And I had that back then. And I don't feel like I have that now. And you need that to survive in those conditions because it's so tough. Like the physical conditions are so grueling. Having to deal with all of these really aggressive personalities is really, really tough. So, like, you have to be able to get past all of that. And I was like, I'm out. Like, I don't, like, I'm all about trying to build community and bring people together and bridging the distance. And I don't want to do this weird combative thing anymore.
Yeah. No, I relate to that a lot. And I think it's very one, there's like something really beautiful about not being hungry or desperate or striving for something. Like I out, just in like professionally speaking or in that context, like I was talking with one of my friends recently and had this thought that like so often I have been in the zone. And I think part of this is like growing up when I'm not a sports fan now, but like growing up as a young kid, I was a sports fan and played sports. And like, there's definitely this like striving mentality where it's like noble. I mean, like,
I'm not saying it's bad at all.
no,
I think you need to have this hunger to
you,
succeed in life.
you do. And it's like, but I also think of like the stuff that's like hustle culture and like rise and grind. I'm like, you know what though? I think I also now I'm realizing like, that drive is so important, and at the same time like you can't just live in a state of like just wanting to like
Survival
grind
mode.
and hustle and be like I'm at the bottom, like let me get for like sometimes you can just be like, oh, I'm really grateful and in an amazing spot and successful at XYZ. So it's like I do feel like there's something kind of like very beautiful about the fact that you're just not as like hungry for it as you would have been or not in the same place as you were then.
You have to find what serves you at that moment
Yeah.
in your life, I think.
Mhm. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's a good way of putting it. And it's maybe a good as I just think about the listeners too, like good to think about where you are in relation to like your goals or what you're working toward, and then are you like, because I've definitely been there. Like, are you feeling like almost beaten down by the goal where you're like, I want this thing, like I'm fighting for it? Or is it something that's like feeding you and positive? Like I really do think there's so many moments where like the journey to doing a really great thing that you're determined to do could be just as beautiful, if not more beautiful than the destination. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just like thinking, you've given me so much to think about, PG, but one of the things is like, what's my relationship with the things that I want? Like, do they make me feel better? Or is it maybe like sometimes not to like I guess this is my only time using this word now, but like, is it a toxic relationship with the thing that you want? Is it serving you or is it not serving you is a good thing to think about.
Success looks different at different points in your life too,
Hmm.
right? There was a time when all I cared about was like making a lot of money and being able to travel and have all these cool things, and then now I really care a lot more about that feeling of teamwork and feeling like I'm part of something bigger than myself, because I never had that. I lone wolfed it like my whole life before. I like ran this like small business, lone wolfing it, like on Survivor I was lone
Yeah.
wolfing it, and it was cool because you get a lot of like in a sense of like individual accomplishment. I did this all on my own. Like, you know what? Doing it on your own sucks. Like it's hard. You gotta
It's not the easy path. Not the easy way to do
you
it.
got to do everything like that exactly. You're doing it all by yourself, and you don't obviously, like, it's not like I had people helping me along the way, but I kind of have since like found value in like that feeling of teamwork and feeling like supported. Well, there's people helping me and like working together like
But
this is a great feeling.
but also like the other thing too, because I'm also definitely someone who I think I'm still learning and like taking action on, let me ask for help, like but let's reframe that too, because it's not about like being in a point where you're like weak in a way and need help, which I don't think, there's a whole other conversation we could have there around like how it's important for us to just like be okay with being vulnerable and all these other things. We could go, that's a whole other tangent. But I think that like inviting other people to be part of our team, quote unquote, to like get something done is such a gift. Like, I'm working on like this side project, which will hopefully turn into so much more than that right now. And like, I'm talking with my brother and with my mom more, and like having them contribute to it. And there's something that's so cool, one around like inviting other people to get excited, just as excited for you about your goal, but also like it is really kind of a gift to like give people a chance to be part of what you're building. So
People get invested in you when they help you. So don't
yeah.
feel bad to ask people for help. I think a lot of times they like it. People like feeling useful and needed.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I love it. And I think like there's so much here. I mean, PG, like you mentioned being a lone wolf, like, but now you're this like wizard of community, you
Okay,
know?
okay. I'm not, but I appreciate it more than I used to be. I don't think I'm like the greatest at it, but I think I really have like a true appreciation of it now that
what
I
do
never did
you
before.
what do you love or what do you appreciate about it now? Because I think,
Feeling
and I'll also just say, like, I ask that thinking about how, even from my own standpoint, like the Rob has a podcast community has really um, changed my life in so many ways. Like for someone not who's never been on reality TV or on Survivor, it is kind of mind blowing to me to like have so many friendships with folks and like have so many great conversations like this one with people who've been part of this thing, and then meet other people who are fans and like nerd out about this. Like it's I don't know, it's changed my life in a lot of ways over the last 5 years
100%.
especially, and I'm curious what that's been like for you.
So people who don't have community, like this was me earlier throughout a lot of my life, you feel lonely. You feel like the world is a lonely place. You feel like it's big and empty and you're screaming into the void, right? And no one's listening to you. And I think that finding a community of people who love the same things as you sharing a lot of the same interests and joys, the inside jokes, things like that, the world feels more warm and less lonely. You're out there, you know that there are people who get you and who see you, and you're like, and they're validating your interests, right? And that actually means a lot to know that like the things that you love, that you're like obsessed with, are validated. You're not weird and you're not a freak. There's other people who have done more than 450 escape rooms who don't think I'm weird for having done so many and being so obsessed with them. Or there's people who have watched every single season of Survivor like 5 times, and they know the little inside joke that makes you giggle every time you see it on TV. And so you have that shared moment with somebody. You don't feel so alone. It's, you know, it's part of like how when I got my dog, okay, bring it back to my dog.
Yum, yum.
And when I walk him now and I'm out with him, everybody's smiling at me. It is the most incredible feeling. And they're not smiling at me. They're smiling at the dog because he's cute. But like, nobody talks, you know, they don't smile at you and talk to you the way you do when you're just out walking by yourself. But now everyone's like, oh my gosh, your dog is so cute. But like, because of that, I don't feel like, I don't know, suspicious of everybody walking down the street. You're not constantly like, you know, oh, suspicious. Who's this guy? What do they want from me?
Yeah.
When everyone's smiling at you, it feels friendly. And like, that's the feeling that, you know, having a dog brings me. That's the feeling that having a community brings to me, you know? And so like, I feel like if anyone's listening to this, who is maybe you're a lurker, you just, you know, and that's totally fine. If you want to just listen and consume the media and just kind of listen to other people's conversations, that's totally valid. But I would also urge you to say hi. You know, I know you guys have Discords out there. Say hi, tweet about it, because you never know who's going to be sharing exactly your thoughts. And then also when you have get-togethers, we have these for our community, the escape rooms. I know that Rob has these for our RHAP. The more you kind of just are talking in the chat, when you actually meet in real life, it doesn't feel as awkward because you have seen their names. Oh, I know you. You're always talking in like the channel or whatever. Like, you know, that the familiarity is really comfortable as well. So I would say hi, introduce yourself if you've never done it before.
I know. I love to talk to the listeners a little bit at the start of the podcast. Like sometimes I'm just like, Matt Scott, like this is Pod Friends. How's everyone doing? And I'll ask it and I'll even pause a little bit, but it's so amazing. Like it's actually amazing to me when someone messages and they're like, hey, you asked like how I was doing, like here's how I'm doing. And I actually genuinely care. But it's funny because when I first started doing Pod Friends, which was 4 years ago, this is like the 5th year of the pod. It's kind of timing's confused, but it's like 4 years ago, but like 5th year of the podcast, however that math works. Next year will be 5 years. It's weird. But I bring this up because like at first I'm like, oh, like it, you know, you just kind of feel like sometimes with podcasting, especially, and sometimes with these virtual communities where you're not doing interaction, you're like, it just feels like no one's listening. Because I'm not a big comment person or looking at the comments and all the things. That's my relationship with feedback usually. But like then I go to an RHAP live event and then you hear like, oh my gosh, this is how much this conversation with Peih-Gee meant to me, and like this thing and that, and like, I think it's really cool when people could go from the anonymity of just being a lurker, which I was for like 3 or 4 years in the RHAP as a podcast Survivor community, to then like just like being part of it and like actually having friends, and not just like friends in your head or parasocial relationships, but like actual relationships as part of it, which is not like, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome to like dip your toe in a little bit, and you could do that in your own way. Like Peih-Gee, we could be here forever, and yet I wanted to make sure to come back to well, I'll definitely come back to like ways people could get involved, you sharing ways people could get involved with your community. But earlier when we started the podcast, you talked about Reality Escape Pod. You didn't talk about Peih-Gee's Playhouse.
Oh my God. I totally forgot to mention. We got so sidetracked.
And I caught it in the moment. I'm like, I'll come back to this.
Yeah, so I actually recently started another podcast called Peih-Gee's Playhouse. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk about it, because I love this project and I feel like it's not getting as many listens as it should, because it's really good. But basically, I was talking to so many amazing creators that I wanted to like make something of my own. And so I started making these little puzzles for the main show, and then I just wanted to keep making like puzzles and games. And so that's what Peih-Gee's Playhouse is. We start off every episode with a wordplay game, and then and these are like, they're all different too. They're always different, and I try to theme them to the topic. So I'll give you an example. So for example, one of the topics was mini golf. Okay, the trivia, we're going to be talking about mini golf. And so I was like, what do I think of when I think of mini golf? I think of a hole in one. And so what I did was I took a word and I put a hole in one. So what that meant in the game was that I would describe a word and then I would add an O to that word to make a new word. So if I had said a color,
Uh-oh, I feel like I'm in the game.
I'm trying to remember what.
I'm like, I just locked in now. I just had it was a sobering moment, because I feel like I'm on Peih-Gee's Playhouse right now. Like,
okay, a spectrum of colors between yellow and red. So you're looking for a word that you're gonna add an O to make a new word.
Oh my gosh. Wait.
So a spectrum
because I went to like rainbow
of colors between red and yellow.
But then I go to orange.
Orange.
I'm so close.
What happens if you remove the O from orange? Because remember, we're adding orange.
Rainbow.
A range of orange. So the word is range, and you added an O, and you got orange.
Look, PG, this is why games are your thing and not mine. It takes a minute. I take at least one test run. I'm like, oh, I'm in it. Okay, I got it. Yes, but this is
I sprung this one on you. No, I should have made one for you guys.
No, I love this, and I will say too, it's so funny. I listened to Peih-Gee's Playhouse and I've listened to a bunch of the episodes, and you listen to even more. But it's so funny because I'm like, okay, let's let them do this first round of what they're doing, and then I'll get what's happening. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, whatever, I'm in it.
I love these wordplay games. I mean, really the reason I started it is because I want to play board games nonstop all the time, even when I'm driving. And I'm like, I just want to keep playing even when I'm in the car listening to podcasts. So that's why I made, a podcast that's filled with like kind of games and puzzles and things like this. So you can kind of play along as you're driving, as you're out walking the dog or working out. And then we have guests come on. So I just recently had Stephen Fishback come on. I've had a bunch of different, other podcasters come on and chat with us. And then my podcast co-host David does a segment on like a piece of trivia or history. And so that's the show. It's short. It's kind of more fun. It's not really like interview style. I chat with the guests a little bit, but it's like a 20-30 minute show.
Yeah, no, and I think with definitely also with Reality Escape Pod to an extent, but even with this show, for the people who are the Survivor fans who just want like an accessible entry point, because obviously people listen to Steven. Like I also think of like Rachel Lamont, who also has Puzzle Hungry now, and people are like going wild over that too.
She's going to be on the podcast. I had her on.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, no, this is the thing. Like, check it out, go back, look for whatever episodes. And that's cool that like people could enter at whatever point they sort of want to. This is amazing, PG. You're the best. Like, I feel like this conversation has brought me a lot of joy, a lot of insight along the way. Obviously, I should have known you'd be like perfect.
You're incredible. You're so easy to talk to, and I'm so appreciative that you reached out. Like, this has been a really, really fun conversation.
It has been. I know. I can't wait to get it out to people. I have to ask you though. I have like one more question, which is a question I ask all of the podcast guests, and that question is, and I'm sure I will vamp for time to give you time to think about this, but if your life were a book or documentary, Peih-Gee, what would the title be
Oh my God.
and why? And it's a big question, but there's so many different titles. There's so many different whys, but I believe in you, and I know that you have something on the tip. Hopefully, you're tuning me out now and just like cycling through titles.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
after like everything that we've talked to, I feel like it's got to be something like, the Game of Life or something
ooh,
like that, like Insights,
oh, that was good. I like that. I like that as like an episode title too. So maybe that might be the episode title. Who knows?
Maybe Insights gleaned from the Game of Life. Who knows?
Ooh, this is amazing. Peih-Gee, like, I feel like I don't usually like ask people to plug the thing, but how can people like get involved in the communities that you're like part of or that you're convening?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for you don't let people plug normally? I'm on
No, I
ready.
don't. Normally, I'm like, I'll just like follow them, check out what they're doing, like whatever. Every other podcast has plug, and then I will like do plugs, like in like the beginning of the podcast and end with my intro and outro. But yeah, like, how can people get involved with what you're up to?
Oh, well, thanks for giving me the opportunity. Yeah, so definitely check out Reality Escape Pod and Peih-Gee's Playhouse. You can listen to those podcasts. Excuse me. You can check out those podcasts there. You can follow us. We're on Instagram at any of those things. And we do have a Patreon. I don't want to be plugging like another
No, plug your Patreon.
Okay.
Plug your Patreon. There's
But
enough room for everyone's Patreons.
That's really that's really like the community, so
Yeah.
it's patreon.com/room escape artist. We've got like bonus content, and we actually have this show that's really cool called the Spoilers Club, because the hardest thing about escape rooms is you can't talk about escape rooms. It's like Fight Club, because you don't want to ruin what happens in them. And so we created a show where the designers come on and they give us almost like a walkthrough of the entire escape room or the experience. And then they can show off this cool puzzle, this cool thing that we did, and really talk about it, but they can never talk about it outside of it because they don't want to ruin the surprise, for their players. And so we encourage people to have like listen to this only if you think you'll never be able to play this game or you've already played it. And then what's cool about it is it's kind of like a designer's kind of behind the scenes spotlight, like a case study. And there's really nowhere else out there where people who are making these type of experiences will give you like a full walkthrough. So we're kind of documenting all of that there. We do put it behind a paywall because, again, I just don't want these games getting spoiled, that they spend so much time on and you can only experience once. So that's my plug for that. Beyond that, if there's anyone out there who is in the escape room industry or wants to be, we do host a convention called Reality Escape Con. That one is going to be in person this year in Montreal. And Montreal, by the way, has the #1 escape room currently in the world at this location called Escaparium. The game is called Magnifico. It's amazing. It's 2.5 hours long. And so that's going to be our convention. And if any of this sounds interesting to you, this is not even my project, but I think it's a really cool thing. David and his wife, Lisa, host these escape room tours, which are really cool because a lot of these great rooms are in other cities. And, a lot of the people that go on them are either like solo travelers or maybe even a couple, because the thing is you need like 4 people to play an escape room.
Right.
You can't always find 4 people to travel with you to another city just to try this cool experience,
Definitely not. Yeah.
And so they arrange these tours. They put you in groups of other players who are already all subscribed to a certain etiquette of how to play, like kind of in a correct way to make everyone feel comfortable and be kind. And they arrange all the schedules. They do all the games for you, and you get to meet, going back to like meeting people who are in the same community. Part of what's fun about that is you meet other people who love doing escape rooms. And
I love this.
in between, and I've helped host, so in between we're playing board games in the lobbies, and it's like summer camp for, you know, escape room nerds. But if that thing seems up your alley, you can look up like, you know, escape room tours from Room Escape Artist, and it's a really, really fun way to meet other people who love the same thing that you do.
This is amazing, PG. Thanks for all of the places and things. Am I literally just hit subscribe on the Patreon, so I'm like excited to check it out. Hope other people do. Yes, that is my shipping address. Oh, I'm in the community. Look at that. This feels special.
Oh my God, I'm so amazed. And listen,
It was
next
that
time
easy.
when I come to DC, we'll do an
Yeah,
escape room together.
please,
So
please.
Escape Room Herndon, for anyone who's in the DC area. I
Uh-huh.
think that's one of like the better companies out there. It is in Virginia, so it's a little bit of a drive, but it's drivable. And yeah, anyone out there, if you guys want escape room recommendations, you can either hit me up or go to the website, roomescapeartist.com. We have regional guides for different cities, how to find the best, what we think are the best escape rooms in your city. It should be in there.
PG, please. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for all of it. And I want to ask you to share any closing wisdom, anything for the listeners.
Oh my God. I think y'all have heard more than enough of me spouting out some, you know, wisdom. But like, honestly, my last bit of advice to you is do it for the story. You know, with Survivor, but with anything else, life experience means a lot. And so, like, I've done some crazy things just to have a good story at the end of it. So take some risks, put yourself out there, try something new. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. I'm not telling you to go put yourself in danger, but put yourself out there. Go get some life experience. Go on that trip. Travel solo. Go do things alone. Go explore things that you love. If no one else in your life loves the thing that you love, guess what? I guarantee you there's someone else out there who does love that thing that you love and wants to sit there and make a safe space for you to talk about it and geek out about it and nerd out about it. They're out there. You got to just find them, and it's worth it. And I promise you it will be worth it to put yourself out there, because you will find joy in meeting people who love the same things that you do. Or maybe they're people who hate the same things that you do. That's okay too.
Wow. Thank you so much, PG. This has been amazing.
I had such a good time, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, PG, for being part of this episode of Pod Friends. It was such a joy to get to connect with you, and even more just to chat up about games, about play, about life, about so many things. And of course, loved having you part of the podcast. Listeners, I also want you to be part of the podcast. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, you can be part of Pod Friends by sharing your story, sending in a video or audio message at bit.ly/survivor50stories. That's bit.ly/survivor50stories. You could do that by Wednesday, the deadline, or you can buy a shirt. robhaswebsite.com/store and buy your Podfriend shirt, send me proof of purchase, and I'll enter you into a drawing to win that preseason interview with Mike Bloom. So excited to be in touch with all of you. And thanks as always for being on this journey with me. Hit me up on social media and the like, Matt Scott GW. And as always, thank you for being a pod friend.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.